Ladies and gentlemen, what's Raila Odinga's real mission at the international stage? That's one thing which is really bothering William Ruto and the entire Kenya Kwanza brigades. What's Raila Odinga up to? Because you can recall that a few weeks ago, Raila Odinga was in South Africa. And while in South Africa, Raila Odinga met with who is who in South Africa, including the president, Cyril Ramaphosa. And this week, Raila Odinga has been in Nigeria. Again, while in Nigeria, Raila Odinga met with who is who in Nigeria. He even attended a meeting which was organized, and the meeting was actually themed Credible Elections and Economy in Transition. He gave a very powerful speech. If you've not watched that speech, please look for it. Very powerful. In this video, I want us to look at why William Ruto and his brigades are actually worried by Raila Odinga's latest international trips. Before we do that, for those who are watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, click that subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue thanking you guys for your continued support, because without that support, this channel cannot be where it is now. Raila Odinga has been in Nigeria, and after delivering that powerful speech, Raila Odinga became headline stories in some of the major international media. And William Ruto and Kenya Kwanza, and even those who are interested in politics, are wondering Raila Odinga's real mission. South Africa will go into an election next year. Nigeria is going into election next month. And that's why there's a lot of interest in Raila Odinga's trips and the objectives which they are intended to achieve. Because remember, on this platform, I've always told you guys that in politics, nothing happens out of mere coincidence. Everything in politics is normally well planned, well scripted, and executed to achieve a specific political objective. So let us look at the objectives of Raila Odinga's trip, which was in South Africa and now in Nigeria, what they are intended to achieve. Now, let us begin. In August last year, Kenyans went to the polls. William Ruto was declared the president of the Republic of Kenya. Raila Odinga believes very strongly that his election was stolen. William Ruto believes that he won fairly. So the issue of electoral integrity in Kenya and its impact across the globe is something which has been worrying Raila Odinga, because it has always been used. In his speech in Nigeria, he explained how Robert Mugabe used the 2007 election in Kenya to rig the next election in Zimbabwe at that particular time. And also the introduction of electronic voting, how it is being manipulated in Africa. So Raila Odinga has this message. Number one, from his speech, it is clear that Raila Odinga is actually inciting Africans against some Western countries. Basically, if you paid very close attention, there were kind of anti-Western campaign in his speech. And he was advising Africans to take a very strong stand against foreign interference in elections. And if you monitored the audience when he was speaking, they were like paying very close attention. The truth of the matter is that there is foreign interference in electoral systems and processes in Africa. And the fact that Raila Odinga can now go outside there and talk about them is something which is really worrying William Ruto and worrying Kenya Kwanza, because it would mean that Ruto and Kenya Kwanza will then now go outside there and defend Western countries against this accusation. So that's number one. Number two, Raila Odinga is also raising the questions about the credibility of Kenyan election. You know, William Ruto is saying he won. Raila is saying he won. Ruto was declared the president, which means officially he's the president of the Republic of Kenya. Raila Odinga was not declared the president, but he's also claiming that he won. So the credibility of the Kenyan election is something which is being contested. And Raila Odinga, in my view, is now taking it to the international stage, so that it's no longer a local issue. Raila Odinga going to South Africa talking about it, it becomes headline. He goes to Nigeria, talks about it, it becomes the headline there. Then tomorrow, I'll not be surprised to see Raila Odinga in Washington, or to see Raila Odinga in London, or to see Raila Odinga in, let's say, Belgium, talking about electoral theft and the credibility of elections in Kenya and in Africa in general. One thing which is coming out clearly is that elections the world over, not only Africa, they normally have credibility issues, but not the extent, according to Raila, the extent of Kenya and Africa. So because of the credibility being put to question, and William Ruto being the president, probably there's something Raila Odinga want to achieve by putting those credibility of electoral process in Kenya into question. The third thing which is coming out from Raila Odinga's trips is that he's trying so hard to put the question about William Ruto's legitimacy. One thing William Ruto won in the last election, he had a clear foreign policy. Raila Odinga lacked a clear foreign policy. And I remember opining in one of my videos before the elections that Raila Odinga needed to have serious lobbyists, people who lobby for his case. Like, for example, the issue of Venezuela, the guys, if he had serious lobbies, these lobbies would have dug deep into this gentleman and would have managed to get credible information. For example, these guys would have gone to Venezuela, they involved the government there, they would have gone to America, asked why this is happening. And a typical case how this was thwarted was in Brazil. There was an election in Brazil, I think last month, and the Western countries wanted someone. It took the effort of Bernie Sanders to stop that. He made noise about those schemes each and every single day. How did he manage to do this? The lobbyists managed to reach him, and being a senator in the US, he was able to raise his voice on the floor, and all these schemes were then thwarted. Raila Odinga is now putting the questions about William Ruto's legitimacy, so that Ruto will then have to engage his foreign affairs department led by Alfred Mutua to go outside there and convince the world that indeed he won the elections credibly and that Raila Odinga is just making noise. The other thing which is coming really from these trips, why, and this is basically why these guys are worried, is that it seems Raila Odinga is actually rallying support for his latest strategy, which begs the question, what is Raila Odinga's game plan? Raila Odinga has started massive rallies in Kenya. Then he leaves the country. He is coming back. He will proceed with some, leave the country to another country, talk about electoral process, then come back to the country. So what do you think it means? It simply means that Raila Amolo Odinga is rallying support for his latest scheme. Personally, I don't know what he's scheming. I just want to be honest with you. I don't know what Raila Odinga is actually scheming, but for me, he's rallying support for his latest moves. And lastly, if you ask me, Raila Odinga is actually protesting electoral fraud. And because of those protests, he's now getting the much needed media attention. Nobody outside Kenya was talking about electoral fraud in Kenya. When he was in South Africa, he explained, got its way into some headlines. In Nigeria, it was massive, I think because they have election. And now he's getting that much needed media attention. Raila Odinga getting media attention in Africa. I'm sure the other international media will start picking his story, his side of the story, and he will get the media attention which he really needed, because previously he was just confined to Africa. And lastly, which is also very, very important, is that what Raila Odinga is doing currently is actually making some donors uncomfortable. You know, Raila Odinga going to Nigeria, talking about electoral fraud in Kenya, telling Africa that they should not copy the case of Kenya, telling Africans that their international countries or some foreign countries which interfered with the electoral process in Kenya. Now, it creates uncertainty, and those uncertainty is what scares some of the donors, so that if there were people who are planning to donate to some projects in the country, they were trying to fund government activities in Kenya, what do you think they'll do? They'll sit back and wait. They don't know what Raila Odinga's game plan is. And by withholding some of these donor fundings, Raila Odinga is basically achieving his objectives. I don't know what you think. Let me know what you think. Do you think Raila Odinga's international mission will actually lead to something? Let me read in the comment section. Thank you guys, and may you have a good day. Bye-bye.